Pleased to say we've got Ian Bishop joining us now. Good evening, Ian.
How we doing, fellas?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, doing all right.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Ian's joined us, as all our guests do, to talk about his career and what he's up to. Now. And I want to really focus on where you spent the bulk of your career at West Ham. Spent nearly 10 years there. What are your memories of playing for West Ham during the 90s?
Well, initially it was tough. It was too good for the second division, not good enough for the first division. Early on, we'd come up, we'd get relegated. I think the bunch of players that we had managed to help stabilise the club to somewhat, to an extent, to give them the opportunity where they are today.
You also spent quite a bit of time at Manchester City, and you were involved in a game that became known as the Main Road Massacre. What are your memories of that game?
Well, I've actually, just because of the derby's been recent, I've seen little YouTube clips in that, and there's been a lot of stuff on Twitter and what have you. The picture of me and Lakey sticks out. There was somebody recently saying the picture of Company when he's jumping in the air after scoring his goal in that game has taken over from the picture of me and Lakey. I'd like to think it hasn't. But everything evolves, doesn't it? Everything moves on. We had I think we had a good run with the 5-1 being the biggest result up until the 6-1 it was the last season or the season before. But we had long enough. It was great. It was. I remember after the game though, it took me till about 10 o'clock to get a pint, which sticks in my mind. I ended up going back to Liverpool when I should have maybe stayed out in Manchester. I ended up going back and watching a match of the day with my dad in the working men's club that he used to drink in.
And your City spell ended when Howard Kendall arrived. There were rumours from what I've researched, that he didn't like the length of your hair, and that was part of the reason that you left. Is that true?
Not really. I think the story stemmed from when I was at Everton when I was younger, and I always had fairly long hair. He told me to get a cut, and I didn't want to, and he threatened me that if I didn't get a cut, that I would be fined. So I got it shaved at the back and the sides and dyed blonde on the top, which was me getting me hit. He wasn't too happy about that. And then I think we were playing a testimonial or a pre-season friendly at Wrexham, and he chased me around the treatment table with a pair of scissors. I let him cut a little bit because he was going to fine me a week's wages. But that was it. That's where it stemmed from. People over-elaborate on certain things and stories like that. But the thing with Howard coming, I did predict with. I don't know if you spoke to Lakey and then he let the body. I think he puts a bit in his boot that when Howard was on his way, I said, "Well, it's been nice knowing you." And Lakey went, "There's no way in a million years this club or these fans will let you go." And 2 weeks later, I was gone.
Right. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to Mike. Mike asks our forum users, should I say, and our show listeners for questions for all our guests. So I know he's got a couple to ask you tonight, Ian.
Okay, mate.
Hi, Ian. Nick asks, I'm good, cheers. Nick asks, you had a great 9 years at West Ham. During your time, who was the best player you played with, and what was your favourite game you played in for the Hammers?
I think I wouldn't say favourite game, but the one that sticks in my memory is the semi-final at Villa Park. I was captain that year. We played Forest in the semis, and a certain referee called Keith Hackett went and killed it for us after 20 minutes. He ended up sending off Tony Gale, which, if anybody watches the tape, was a very, very harsh decision. I think we held out till half-time at 0-0. I think we hit the post as well. We hit the post late in the first half, I think early in the second half before they scored. But obviously once they got the first, we were chasing the game. I still remember that. I didn't understand why Tottenham and Arsenal managed to play this semi at Wembley, and we were on a sandpit at Villa Park. It didn't seem right, but it was what it was. The memory that sticks in my mind was, I don't know whether it was 40,000 West Ham fans there, and even at 4-0 down, they were singing Billy Bond's Claret and Blue Army. It was non-stop. They treated us like heroes after their game, which You know, for us just coming off the field 4-0 losers in the semi-final, after being so close, it was a special day, even though we lost. You know, I think that was the season when Gaza got injured in the final against Forest. But I mean, as far as the top players I played with, I can't get away from Tony Cottee and Clive Allen really for, I think, two of the best finishers in the world. Never mind just at West Ham. Everybody knows Julian Dix's reputation. I used to share a room with Dixie for about 3 years. He was probably the toughest player I've ever seen. Slaven Bilic was a quality player. You know, I used to love playing in midfield with Johnny Monks and Mickey Marsh. You know, we kept the ball for fun when we did play together in them little triangles, you know. And I mean, the real big memories of West Ham was maybe the midweek games where we didn't fear anybody. It didn't matter what position we were in the league. Anyone, Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal would come and you know, we'd do a number on them normally. Great atmosphere there, Upton Park. It's sad to me that I know football, like I said, evolves, but I think the stadium's going to lose a little bit of the character and the atmosphere and stuff, you know. Just being a bit sentimental, maybe.
And just finally from me, Nakatomi Plaza off the forum asks, what would you say were the respective strengths and weaknesses of Billy Bonds and Harry Redknapp as managers?
Well, the thing with Billy was he led by example, really. He made the pros at the time, which, don't get me wrong, we didn't really take care of our bodies the same as people do today. But Billy was always, even at 42, 43, 44 even, I don't know how old he was when he was managing, but he was still fitter than everybody else. You know, he was in the gym in the morning before everybody, and he was the last one to leave. Some mornings you'd come in, you hear this big booming from the gym, and you'd wonder what it was. You'd walk in and he'd have a ball against the wall and he'd be block tackling it. And I think in that sense, Billy, and I would say Billy's honesty worked for him as far as the respect of the players, and probably worked against them in the game that wasn't so honest, in my beliefs. Harry's biggest thing was he knew a player. He knew how to find a player. He knew how to find a bargain as well, which he did with me at Bournemouth. I think he paid 35 grand for me at Carlisle, and after one season sold me for, I think, $750 to Man City. I think he did the same with Colin Clark and a few other players. He was a manager that could get the best out of maybe so-called trouble players also. He wasn't scared to go and take them players from the problems they'd had and bring them to his club and get the best out of them, you know. And I still say it, you know, me and Harry had our ups and downs over the years, but he more or less resurrected my career at Bournemouth for me.
Thank you very much. I'll pass you over to Chris because I know he's got some questions to ask you.
Okay, mate.
Hi, Ian.
How you doing, mate?
I'll take it to you. I'm fine. Sorry. I'll ask you about your time in America, if that's all right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Firstly, how did the people of Florida find your accent? I know when I went to Orlando, they didn't understand it.
I'll be honest with you. In America in general, the first thing they say is, "Are you Australian?"
Yeah.
And then they'll say, "You South African?" And then it'll be Irish. And I'll say, "Hold on a minute, what language do you speak?" And they'll say, "English." I'll say, if it's theirs. And I say, well, shouldn't that be your first guess, really? You know what I mean?
That's what I said.
I don't think I've got a strong Scouse accent anymore, you know? And as soon as you say Liverpool, they always say the Beatles anyway.
Yeah, and I think they expect you to sound like Ringo Starr. So.
As long as you don't look like him.
How did your move to Miami Fusion come about?
Well, when I went back to City, my second spell, I made a prediction at the time that I wouldn't settle, I wouldn't be happy till I'd helped the club get back in the Premier League. And we managed to do that with consecutive promotions. First one being the playoff final at Wembley against Gillingham when we were 2-0 down. 90 minutes on the clock, and we managed to salvage it and win it on penalties. And then we went up again the following season. I was 35 in the Premier League. You know, I was getting used sparingly at the time. I think at that time Joe was playing a more direct game. more defensive game, trying to solidify, the club status in the Premier League. And I needed to play football, and the opportunity came when Asa Harford came to me, who had played over here, and he said that the guy Ray Hudson wanted to know. He was manager at Miami at the time. Did I want to go over? Did I fancy going playing in the MLS? And I figured at 35, I had 2 good offers at the time from Barnsley and Sheffield Wednesday. To be honest with you, for double the money of what I took to come here.
Yeah.
But Ray had promised that if I had one good season at my age, they would give me 2 more years and double my money to what I should have been earning. I said, well, I've just come from the Premier League. I've got no worries in proving myself in the MLS. We did just that. We had the best season in the club's history. One of the best seasons in MLS history, actually. Most wins, most goals, most points. Unbeknownst to us, they were folding the club at the time. Everybody seemed to know, but us. When we cottoned on, I think it was around about the quarter-final playoffs. And there was nothing we could do about it. We ended up winning the playoffs in the quarters. We came to the semis against San Jose. In 6 playoff games, we had 6 red cards. So something was going on.
Yeah.
Our motivational talk before the game was, they don't want us here. Let's go and prove them wrong. And that's exactly what we did at the time. We lost 2 dubious decisions in the semi-final. I ended up getting red carded in my last game, 10 minutes from the end, when it was 0-0. We lost in what they call overtime with a golden goal. I looked at the video, and the guy I'm supposed to have fouled, I was about at least a foot away from making any contact with him. So we all knew what was happening. So that was my part and shot really in the MLS. I ended up, they folded the club as I was about to sign 2 more years. So I ended up no man's land really. I got offered to go and play in DC. I think it was LA, San Jose. I think it was about 6 or 7 clubs that wanted me to go, and I ended up fighting for the Players Union instead. I ended up standing up to the MLS, fighting for the Players Union. Only put a little small dent in it, but I don't regret any of my actions. Even though I was told after that I was blackballed, never to be invited back, which is fine also. I went back home and bought a pub. Not the best idea.
So when David Beckham opens a franchise in Miami, you're expecting a phone call from the manager?
I don't know. I'd like to. I would really like to. I'd like to be involved in the game at a higher level. I've been coaching in the youth system here for the last 7-8 years, which it's been good because I've got some players into college. I've got some players at professional clubs. I've actually just been over to England. Took 4 players over there. We've got a kid who's training at Gillingham now. One who's 17 who's stayed over there and who's with Bournemouth. I took 2 16-year-olds to Liverpool. They had a week there. Just didn't quite cut the mustard at that place. But I've got high hopes for them. And right now I've got a good friend of mine in Pittsburgh. We've just set up a sports management company called Blue Moon International. It's just a baby right now. But we're going to aim at the 16, 17, 18-year-old American kids to start with. Maybe try and get them placed if they have EU connections. Or maybe get them into non-EU countries in Europe. So to let the clubs do the development, and then sort of take them on board when they're 18 years old. Once we get the business up and running, we'll look to, establish ourselves and get some high-profile players.
Oh, right. I recently read that soccer is the 17th most famous sport in America, between monster truck racing and deer hunting.
And NASCAR.
Do you think that football could ever be as big as American football or baseball or basketball?
No, it's difficult with the homegrown sports, but I think it's taken over baseball now. I think it's eating its way into the sports here. I don't know about what's going to happen with the MLS if they make it like a European schedule where it's August to May. I think it could happen. I think they're going that way now. I think they're doing the right things now, the MLS. Like I said, the past is the past, but I'm happy for the football here because it means the kids that I'm involved with, the youth that I'm training, that I'm placing, they're going to have better opportunities when they get older, So they're going the right way. And City coming in up with the connection in New York, and if Dave does to get something down in Miami. I'd love to get back involved. I really would. I mean, I think this is why we've gone ahead with this company. It keeps me involved with the sports at the highest level, I think, I've got some good friends within the game, and I've really found out since we've set this company up that I've got more friends than I realised, to be honest with you. But at my age now, the players I played with, they're all involved at some level, and a lot of them have already done me favours by letting me bring kids over and giving them the opportunity to see what the real game's about. Which, even if they don't sign, that's beneficial to the kids anyway, to see how hard they have to work to get to that level,
Okay, well, I'll pass you over to Owen if he's got any questions.
Yeah, hi there. I just wanted to go back to your time starting out as a youngster. We touched on Howard Kendall and him moving you on from Goodison Park. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, what was it like at that age? What's it like, being at a club close to home? A club who was, a big club. The thought was that you could break into the first team, and then finding yourself having to go back down the leagues and build your way up again, as it were. Is it difficult? Is it hard to motivate yourself, or is it just good to be playing football?
It's strange because when you try and talk to the youngsters today, especially in the States, it's hard to explain to them because they're so much education orientated, and it's all about going to college when you're 18. That you have to make a choice, and for us it's a little bit easy because we leave school at 16. Before I left school, I knew I'd been offered an apprenticeship at Everton. I still went to Liverpool. I still got offered to go to Liverpool as well, but at that time, even at that age, I figured that my path may be blocked at Liverpool because of how good they were at the time, and that's not to the detriment of Everton. It's a quality club as well, really family orientated, and obviously only 2 minutes bus ride from my house. To go there and be part of it, just a professional setup, it was your dream, and I don't know what it was like for them kids who had the same dream that fell by the wayside, because I only had the feeling that I was going to be a footballer, and it actually happened. So I really don't know any different, which is not in an arrogant way, but I can't speak for my best friend at Everton for 2 years when we were apprentices. Was a guy called Dave Galloway, a Scottish lad, and I always thought he was a better player than me. He was a winger, 2-footed, quick. I got kept on as a professional at 18, and he didn't. And it was like I'd been turned away as well, kid from Glasgow who'd been away from home, settled in, and I'd known him from being a schoolboy when he turned up in school holidays and stuff, and we're still friends today, and he became a stonemason. He gives me a sort of insight as to what, and he sort of openly admits that I had something else inside, a drive that he didn't have, you know what I mean? So when you explain to I also had 3 brothers that all my coaches when I was a kid said I was probably the least likely to make it, but I was the only one who did make it. Now, to actually go to a club like Everton, it's daunting, really, because my older brother went for a trial while I was already on the books, and he was upstairs in the canteen area where they read the names out and say, go down into this dressing room or that dressing room. And they read my name out instead of his. And he walked out. He never went back. He played a little bit part-time for Crewe for about a month and then walked away from the game. So there is something in your character and your makeup that you need rather than just ability. The thing was at Everton, actually Simon Gordon-Lee was the manager and I signed an apprentice, and Howard came about a month after. Howard gave me 2 professional contracts. So I don't think it was a dislike to me or my style of play or whatever. But the thing was, I think he got an open checkbook when he arrived. And if I remember rightly, there was about 52 professionals at the club when I was there. And if I look at the first team midfield players, Peter Reid, Bracewell, Trevor Stephen, Kevin Sheedy, Kevin Richardson, all these players, Adrian Heath to an extent, I know he played off the front man, but Trevor Ross was still there, Alan Irvine was there, Alan Ainscough. it was difficult getting a reserve game. And when I'd been used to it a little bit early on, at 16, 17, and then all of a sudden at 18, 19, it wasn't happening again. Howard pulled me in and said Carlisle had come in and made an offer. And it was more or less my choice whether I wanted to go or not. I had 9 months left of a 1-year contract. This was October time, I think. And I figured, you know what? First team football, maybe. I'll go. And they were in the second division at the time. So, I mean, it was difficult to leave Liverpool. It was difficult to leave my fiancée at the time. But I decided to up sticks and go to Carlisle. When I think about it now, it seemed like it was thousands of miles away. It was only a 2-hour drive, but, you know, when you first real move from home, and I ended up settling in there, and, you know, Bob Stokoe, the manager at the time, God rest him, he's fantastic. We used to call him Uncle Bob, because he used to take care of us. You know, we lived in a house, about 5 boys, 5 of us near the ground, and he'd come in and check on if we were eating properly, or not drinking too much. So, I mean, it was good times. But, I mean, the thing with Howard was, you know, he saw me from Everton. My path was blocked there. You know, the club did good business because I think they got a percentage of the seller. And then, obviously, the Man City thing happened. But actually, when I had my pub in Southport, which was years later, one of Howard's scouts used to come in. And he told me that Howard lived in Formby, which was close to Birkdale, where I lived. He said, and I've told him you've got your pub here. I said, bring him in. Just bring him down. So I think it was one morning I was in the office about 11 o'clock, 11:30, and my manager come running in. He was a big Everton fan. He went, somebody to see you, and he was panicking. And he could see him visibly shaking. I said, who is he? He went, you just got to come out now. You've got to come out. I said, who is it? He went, it's Howard Kendall. I went, oh, I'll be out in a minute, okay? Just let me finish up. And I walked out, and he see me. He went, hey, Bish. I went, don't tell me you've come to sell me to another pub. Yeah, got a bit of a laugh at him. The ultimate drink, we sat down and, you know, chatted. And, you know, at the end of the day, look, whatever Howard did or however many times he sold me, my career wouldn't have taken the path that it took. I would never have had 9 good years at West Ham, which was a fantastic place. I wouldn't have had my 2 spells at City, which the first one was only 6 months with the Derby game, and the second with the two promotions and getting the club back where they belonged. Miami was a great year for me. Look, I'm still sitting here now in Florida, and the kids are happy. You know, it's a good life here. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Hawaii. I've been over the summer. I've been working for West Ham's International Academy over in the States. In the last 4 months, I've been to Seattle, Pittsburgh twice, Louisiana, Georgia, 6 days in Hawaii, in Maui, running a camp for them there. So I've been doing okay. I can't complain.
Yeah, I was going to say I can't complain. Just a quick final question. You played obviously had 2 spells at City, and in between you were at West Ham, and you played a lot of your football during that transformation period, as it were. You know, the Premiership had just started up, and you know the foreigners were becoming part and parcel of the game a little bit more. You know, you had Georgie King-Clapsey at Man City and that. I'd just like to know who you would have loved to have played alongside in the midfield, who you didn't get a chance to.
I'm sorry, mate. Can you say that again? The kids are making
yeah. That's all right. No, I was just saying, you played in a time when a lot of foreign players were starting to come into the game, into the Premier League. Yeah. And who would you love to have paired up alongside in the midfield, who you didn't get a chance to play with?
You know what? It's to me the players I played with were good enough. I mean, I look at it today and I look at the systems that get played now, and I think that holding role, that in a 4-2-3-1, that 2 positions would have suited me down to the ground. You know, I look now and, you know, it's about keeping possession in them positions. It's not necessarily creating or making things happen anymore, which was, you know, I believe that's what I did. I think for a player who was sort of lacking in pace, that would have suited me. Like I said, I mean, I played with some some great midfield players that weren't probably recognised as much as they should have done. I mentioned Monkey, Johnny Monks, I mentioned Marshy. Hutch had his time there and his spell there. I even seen Peter Butler the other day on Malaysian television, and I thought about the good times then. I'd have liked to. If I go back, I think I would like to have been in there longer with Liam. It was only sort of his last 9 games that I got to play alongside him, sort of, when I was new at the club. And he was one of my heroes from when I was a kid. Glenn Hoddle was the same. I wouldn't have minded slotting in there alongside Glenn Hoddle, really. I don't know whether you're sort of shifting towards the players of today, maybe.
No, just anyone from around that time, really.
Yeah, it was difficult for us. I would like to have, been more prominent on the England scene. I think we were in an era with the club where we were always fighting. We were always, when are we going to get safe? How many points do we need? And I might have liked the luxury of playing alongside Gaza somewhere, maybe, or there was a couple of decent seasons that Arsenal had with some good midfield players. Dennis Bergkamp, maybe, Franco Zola. When I stop and think of the players in them days, because when people say it was your most difficult opponent or the best player you played against, when you start reeling players off, you realise how good the game was then,
Yeah, it's my favourite time even now is back in between 94 and 98, 99. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought.
It's fantastic. I wouldn't have minded staying and playing with Di Canio, maybe. I know he was a bit of a character, but after leaving and seeing the way the team went and with him and how he was sort of revered by the fans and stuff, I still go back and love going back there and you recognise when you finish playing that your enemies disappear, because it was a time where, especially when you are fighting relegation, some days you have off days and some days people don't like you for having off days. You know what I mean? But when you go back after you're retired, you can't have an off day anymore. I think people realise that I gave 9 years of my life and 300 odd games or whatever it was, and I don't feel I ever let anybody down in my time there. It's nice to go back, and I've had the luxury of the clubs I've been at that I never left on bad terms in any sense. It's nice to go back and be in the lounge with all them people in there and talk about the old times, It was great days for me. I wouldn't swap it for anything. People can ask you today, about the money and stuff. I don't begrudge anybody in the money they in now. Because I've seen being over here that the game is like 10 years behind the American sports here on what the salaries are. And it's the biggest game in the world for me. So if these could have done that 10, 15 years ahead of us, what's to stop the players in and what they do now? I think that the biggest difference for me is now, it sort of started in our era, the rotation system and that. And I hated it. I never wanted to sit down. I never wanted to come off. I never wanted to miss a game. And it seems like the foreign players of that era started it all. And, I'm tired, 2 games a week, 50, 60 games a season, I can't do it. And I never understood that, because you play this game to go out in front of the fans, You don't play it to go training or to sit on a treatment table. You play it to go out and do your job in front of all them people and want to do it well and get that euphoria, I never understand why people need the rest. I think it's why now it's not so bad when players get injured. Nobody rushes them back, They don't need to because of the rotation system. They're probably going to be left out at some stage anyway. So it's a case of let's do it now and let them get fit. Let's bring them back. When a specialist said to me, with my cartilage operation, you'll be 6 weeks. And I played a game after 8 days against Millwall. The specialist thinks you're nuts, you'll never do it. And it happened. And even at 35, 36, I had the same thing here in the States with Miami. I played after 10 days after they took the blast of my meniscus out. I told the surgeon I'd be playing the game in 10 days. I couldn't play the one in 4 days. He said, you'll be out 6 weeks. I said, well, you're coming to the game. I'm going to buy you tickets. And then I'm going to buy you a pint in the bar afterwards. And we played Dallas. We won 4-2. I played the whole game. who's in the lounge bought him a pint. You know, I think I played. People don't realise I did play 6 months with a double hernia for West Ham because Harry had said we can't do without you. Now I was playing on a Saturday, not getting out of bed till Monday, sort of rolling to the side. I wasn't really jogging till Friday, and then I'd started again for 6 months. I missed a 3-week trip to Australia at the end of the season to get surgery and make sure I was ready for the next season. You know, I don't think players sort of have that desire anymore. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, is the biggest difference in today's game. You know, you've got
Times have changed.
Yeah, it's changed. I mean, the game's evolved. It gets me as well. I mean, you know, you see English players now coming on the field, touching the grass and making a sign of the cross. I mean, where did that come from? You know what I mean? There's different things. Kissing the ring, kissing the wrist, pointing to the skies. It's, you know, it just wasn't like that.
That's it. That's all my questions. Thank you very much, Drew.
Okay, mate.
Yeah, I think you've answered all of our questions, Ian, to be fair. It's been a pleasure to have you on and talk to you, though, definitely. I mean, hopefully you'll come on again in the future. We'll be able to talk a bit more about what you're doing in the States with the youngsters. I know we focused a lot on youth football on this show since it started just a couple of months ago now. But hopefully you'll come back on again in the future. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I'm sure the other guys will agree with me.
Cheers, Ian.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much.
Thanks, fellas. It's been great. Anytime you need to, mate, just give us a shout.
Fantastic, Ian. Well, thanks very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day anyway.
Okay, mate. It's a pleasure. I've got Halloween to go out to now.
Have fun.
Take care.
Cheers.